Hello all. Finally recording another of these. Well, it feels like forever for me, mainly because it took me so damn long to watch this movie. So, Space Cowboys. It's a movie from 2000, directed and produced by Clint Eastwood, apparently, which I had only heard of because of the title. I was like, Space Cowboys? This is going to be about cowboys in space. And then it wasn't. It really wasn't. They weren't cowboys. Except, I guess, in the sense of being from America and being kind of older relics. Yeah, so the basic premise was these four old farts from the space program back in, like, the 60s get involved in going up to fix some Russian communication satellite because it's based on the sort of the technology which they're really familiar with, but which all the new kids haven't been trained on. So most of the movie, well, like half of the movie is them getting involved with this project, convincing James Cromwell to let him go, generally arguing with each other and everyone else, and training, and then the second half they finally get on the launch pad. And the thing is, this movie is 2 hours long, and it gets interesting about an hour and 30 minutes through. Because that's when they actually make contact with the satellite and discover that it's not a communication satellite, it's actually a defense satellite, it's fucking bombs in it. And then, of course, some idiot kid in their group decides, I'm just gonna go through with this plan anyway, and fucks it up, and then it arms itself, and then there's all this stuff. Okay. Don't care about the plot. Yeah, I didn't really like this movie that much. Like, it wasn't terrible, but unfortunately, I didn't think, it just didn't really, like, grab me that much. I mean, it didn't help that the first scene, which is in the 50s or something, and it's about the guys, some of the characters flying, just an actual plane as test pilots, and generally being fools. So I was getting kind of the Right Stuff vibe. Actually, they make a joking reference at one point in this movie to the Right Stuff, but they call them the Ripe Stuff because they're old. But anyway, the movie begins with this flashback, and they filmed it, like, clearly they filmed it in color and then applied this heavy blue filter to everything. So I guess, like, to give it this impression of being older, but I'm like, oh my god, don't do this to my eyes. It's like easily 5 minutes, maybe a little longer, of this awful blue filter on everything. I'm like, just do something, maybe a gray filter instead if you've got to do this thing, or just, like, don't do it. Why, Clint Eastwood? I'm blaming him, it's probably his fault. Yeah, otherwise I wasn't super interested, because it was just like, oh boy, old farts are gonna go into space, and sometimes that's my jam. But it just wasn't for this movie, I don't know why. Yeah. It was kind of funny sometimes. Tommy Lee Jones was the best part. Unfortunately, spoilers, as if you care, he dies, but it's like, because everything's all fucked up, and the only way to get the missiles to not, get shot at major U.S. metropolitan areas is to actually launch this thing out. Oh god, and then the ending of the movie is really weird too, because the other guys get back to Earth safely and everyone's happy, and then they're considering later whether Hawk, that is Tommy Lee Jones' character, made it to the moon. And I'm like, first of all, who cares, because he's dead. But, because he's gonna be dead. But, like, then they had Fly Me to the Moon, that song, lovely song, playing, and we saw that he actually did make it to the moon, and he was, like, sitting up against some rocks looking at the Earth, and also definitely dead. But I was like, the fuck? Like, it was just jarring, because it's this wonderful, cheerful, jazzy, like, Frank Sinatra singing it kind of song, and, like, fucking dead body. It was weird. But yeah, I don't know. I guess if you were really into, like, maybe the more technical aspects of the space program and stuff, this might be kind of interesting movie. But then again, they don't actually explain anything. It all just sort of happens, which is fine. I wasn't confused, but I guess if you were wanting to learn something, like, you're not really gonna. Yeah, so I wasn't a huge fan of this movie, and it took me like a week to finally watch the whole thing. And I know pausing for multiple days in the middle of a movie does not help make you more fond of it, but I tend to do that anyway. That's just like a thing where I usually don't just sit down and watch a movie straight through. I'll get distracted. And that doesn't, so I know that I'm kind of like compensating for that, with my judgment. Yeah, I just didn't think it was that interesting. I felt like the four main guys had decent chemistry. Like, you did get the impression that they'd known each other for a long time and generally kind of, joking around and giving each other shit and stuff. So that was fine. I guess just the basic premise didn't capture me, so that was sort of the problem. And then it's also like you're supposed to care about their mission, I guess, but you don't find out why it's really of vital importance until they discover that it's a missile satellite and not communications. And then you're like, well, shit. And I get that they were trying to, have that be a reveal, like, wow, oh my goodness. I think maybe it would have been better if the audience had already kind of at least had a suspicion that there was more going on here. Like, you did in a little bit. Like, they mentioned, for one thing, that the one young guy, like the guy, okay, James Cromwell and the Russian general and whoever on Earth at NASA did mention that things were going to turn out alright no matter what the old guys did, because they had some of their own young man on board. I don't know, I just think maybe they could have played it a little bit more like, so that we had reason to be suspicious beyond it's the Russian satellite, so maybe like, I get that Russia has had terrible governments for all of eternity, basically, but I'm kind of over it's the Russians and we're in space, therefore the bad guys. And like, they didn't even really turn out to be the bad guys, like, not in any material way. It was just like, it's their rocket and it's full of missiles, and the general didn't tell anybody. And I was like, bullshit, James Cromwell. I feel like he knew, but I don't think that was even the implication of the movie, and they never confirmed it. I think he was actually supposed to be surprised. I was like, oh. I don't know, I just didn't feel like that vibe was working. But anyway, that's sort of it, I guess. Not my favorite, definitely not my favorite Clint Eastwood movie. No, I wouldn't even put it up in the top. Well, have I seen 5? I probably have. I don't know if I'd put it in the top 5. I mean, no shit, because it's not one of the older classic spaghetti westerns. It's also not like Gran Torino, which is a really good movie, or $1 Million Baby, which is a really good movie, which I can never watch again because it ruined my life. But yeah, no, meh. It did not give what the title promised to me, which was Cowboys in space. And that's really all I wanted. That's like my favorite aesthetic, and it's like just not there really. Just like old farts in space. Good for them, I guess. One last thing I'll mention. I did appreciate that this shuttle was named Daedalus. I'm not sure if that's actually a real shuttle or not. I don't think it is. But I appreciate that for once I guess you could call it sci-fi, right? A sci-fi work called a spaceship Daedalus instead of Icarus, because there are so many Icaruses in science fiction that's just this point where you're like, you're fucking doomed if you name your spaceship Icarus, don't do it. But they named theirs Daedalus, and that's a much better idea. Yeah, so, thank you and good night.